I already hit live. So, greetings, readers and travelers, and welcome to another episode of Chat and Stats. So, it's actually not a traditional episode. We are doing something we haven't done in a long time, which is a cold read. I am joined today by author Timothy McGowen, who has written such series such as, let's see, Arcane Knight, Last Born at Dakarth. Let's see, what else is there? Path of the Titans. Hmm. I feel like there's one I'm missing. I feel like there's one I'm missing. Tim, what book is that? Is it Eldritch
Is it
Knight?
the Eldritch Knight series?
I think it is. I think it is. So we're gonna wait until I think a few people get in here just before, because we're doing today kind of like a AMA/cold read, where we're gonna sample the first few chapters of Eldritch Knight because I'm narrating it, and we're gonna have fun with it and do some fun stuff. We probably should tell people that we are live because I forgot to. So, see, where's Jess? Maybe we can get her in here today. See what we got going on.
Do you have a link to the thing that I can share? To
It's
the
just on
podcast?
our YouTube page, which I can send you a link right now, actually.
Yeah, I know I'm following you, but I can't find it. Did you guys change the name?
It's Chat and Stats now.
That's what I tried.
So here, I'll post it in the private chat for you.
Thank you. Wow.
I hear
So we'll do
Hermes
the-
screaming out in the. Oh. This is so much fun. Let's see if I can get this going. I probably should have prepped a little bit better for this. Go to Twitter real quick, or X. I don't care if my likes are private. I don't like anything. What is your Twitter? Because I know I'm following you on Twitter. I just can't figure out what the ad is.
What's for mine?
Yeah.
Um,
Is it author Timothy
what
McGowan?
is it? It's a weird one. Let me link it to you.
Okay.
I just have to pull it up on my phone.
Well, don't just stare at me awkwardly. Paul, shut up. No one asked you for your opinion, but we're happy you're here. And I'm not staring at you awkwardly. I'm staring at my screen awkwardly because
Sorry, Twitch or Twitter?
Twitter.
Okay. It is. How do I copy this?
If you just tell me what the ad is.
Timothy. So Timothy M. McGowan, except without it. The N at the end is
There it
just a
is.
one.
There it is.
Yeah. Just stare forward. Hmm.
All right. Prime entertainment. That's correct. Well, Paul. Listen, we were doing things because we probably should have prepped a little bit better before the episode, and we did not. So, do with that what you will. So, Tim, as we're starting to get some people in here, why don't you tell us a little bit about Eldritch tonight? Like, what's the deal with that?
Well, it's I mean, we're going to be reading from the second book, but the first
Yeah,
book, just to give kind of an
I should
idea
go grab my
without
copy of the
spoiling
first
too
book.
much. If you want,
Yeah, I'll go grab it.
I think I have it
I'll go
as
grab
well.
it. I know where mine's at. Okay, there we go. So yeah, book one. I need to get like a shelf in
Book
here
one.
so I can like just set it
There
up.
you go. Have it in the background.
Paul, we got a new project.
So Eldritch
Haven
Knight,
Chronicles book one.
yeah, it was the first book I ever wrote. Was book one, and it's kind of what I wanted and what I enjoy to read in fantasy, which is kind of a portal fantasy, but with futuristic elements at the very beginning that transition to kind of a fantasy world. It's very much your weak to strong character, uh, and follows the kind of a hero's journey, really, as most fantasy stories tend to be. He starts off in a world that's very scary, not only to him but to the world in general. It's ending, so he finds a way to get out of that. I don't want to spoil too much about it. Just that it's a pretty epic story. You get a lot of action.
There's some fuckery that happens. Some
Yeah.
absolute fuckery. So obviously, we're going to be reading from book two. We're going to do the prologue and probably the first 2 chapters, give or take, depending on how my anxiety goes, because doing live narrations is hard. Because how do I put this? Dyslexic and anxiety. So I grabbed alcohol to help. So when we start the first book, we meet our lovable main character, Phil. And he's in a world that shit's just gone to hell. It is absolutely gone to hell. How does give us a little description of the world of Haven, the world where he has uploaded himself into.
So Haven is, at first it's proposed that everyone believes is a haven, which is kind of where it gets its name.
Mm-hmm.
It's a world that's going to be like, oh, happy butterflies and ponies and stuff. But they get there and it's very much not that. It's a vicious world. It's a kind of dangerous world. It's kind of high fantasy. It's got different races and unique races and things, and lots of political kind of movements going on behind the scenes with the war that's happening in the world. And yeah, I think it's one of the more unique worlds that I've created up to this point.
So let's give a little background for what people are going to need to know, since we are going into book two. Obviously, you reached out to me to ask me to do book two when the original narrator kind of went MIA. Not sure.
Yeah, and I disappeared and haven't been able to make any contact. So
I hope they're okay. I legitimately hope they are okay. I'm happy you reached out to me to do this because I actually really, really love the first book and I love the world. And book 2 introduced one of my favorite characters, my good pal Tank. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun with him.
Yeah, he was a fun time to write too. He's
Now, when we originally talked, Tank was going to be the main character originally.
Yeah, so when I first wrote book 1 and I got about halfway into it, he was the main character. Uh, and so everything was a little bit different than how book 1 ended up turning out because I did a complete rewrite and had to change it because Phil and Tank are two very different people.
Oh yeah,
Which you come to learn as you get to know their personalities and how they interact with the world. Uh, so yeah,
they're
but he was meant to be the main character, so he's got main character energy for sure.
I love how you do the characters. How you write the characters, I should say. I gotta work on my phrasing a little bit more before that alcohol kicks in. um no, Tank is definitely one of my favorite characters in the book. I've already read through book 2, obviously, because I had to read it before I decided if I was going to narrate it or not. Right? Isn't that how it's supposed to go?
Well, depends on the narrative, but I like to hope that that's what happens.
Um, and like with me now recovered from my back injury, I got the okay from my physical therapist that I'm cleared. I had a lot of downtime to get some reading in, so I powered through the backlog a lot because I couldn't spend a lot of time in the booth. So I'm behind on a few projects, which I'm gonna get caught back up on now that I'm back to full capacity, and I'm hoping to have a few projects out by DragonCon. So I'm gonna be working nonstop up until then, and I'm excited about doing so. So let's go ahead and just dive on into the prologue of Eldritch Knight. So this is the very first page, prologue. It says chapter 1 in the paperback, but we learned that it is the prologue. So, prologue. James. Several hours after Phil transferred himself to Haven, blood poured from James' stomach. Yeah, okay. No, I'm reading correctly. Okay. Blood poured from James' stomach as the old white van he drove sputtered as it struggled to make it the last mile. The last few blocks looked like they had been cleared recently. Trash and other debris was crowding the sidewalks. James, or Tank as he was known throughout the digital world, knew he had little time left to live. His roommate, Dave, known as Frog to most, had already died. A mix of pain and adrenaline was all that kept James from falling apart. He was used to death. That wasn't the problem. What he wasn't ready for was the death of everyone he held dear in a single day. Stay on mission. James' voice sounded foreign even to his own ears. Hours of screaming and a meaty punch to the throat all but destroyed his voice. Shifting in the seat, his one free hand doing its best to stem the bleeding, he turned onto the street he'd been looking for. Damn it, Phil. A bloody cough splattered the window ahead of him. You better have made it. The ancient van's brakes screeched as it tried to come to a complete stop in front of the dimly lit warehouse. The last remaining hubcap continued to roll onward well after the van came to a complete stop. James glanced at the crumbled strip of paper where he had written the address Phil had sent. He was in the right place. 1425 West Travel Street. Pain shot through him and he cursed. His hand moving to stem the flow of blood from the bullet wound in his side. It could have been worse, he reminded himself. Taking several steady breaths, he looked over what remained of one of his closest friends. Dave's eyes stared directly into James' direction, lifeless and cold. James met the gray eyes of his friend. There wouldn't be any more jokes, No more goofy smiles from Dave. Out of all of his friends, Dave had been his closest. Reaching out, his hand was leaning forward. James pressed his forehead against Dave's, his hand firm against the side of his head. Rest easy, friend, and may the gods greet you kindly. Dave had been courageous to the end, driving without fear as bullets whizzed around us. Wouldn't that be them? Bullets whizzed around them since it's a third-person perspective? I don't know. We're going to do them. We're going to do them. So, Dave had been courageous to the end, driving without fear as bullets whizzed around them. There was no greater deed than a friend could do than give his life for another. James released the grip and he stepped free of the van. He ripped the sleeve of his shirt and hastily tied a makeshift bandage around his midsection. Lucky for him, it stretched. Not many sleeves were long enough to wrap around his enormous girth. Phrasing. Let's work about the phrasing there. He was a big man, but not fat or overweight by any normal standards. Normally, he'd spend the last few hours of the day at the gym, but lately, his time had been spent in cage fights. It had the dual benefits of keeping him in a good shape and letting him vent his rage. Most that met him would agree that he was a gentle giant. He stood an easy 6'9" and weighed a sturdy 370 pounds. I'm going to redo that one. He stood an easy 6'9" and weighed a sturdy 370 pounds of muscle. The gentle giant routine was carefully crafted persona James had worked out since he was 10 years old. Memories of the days he had gone too far flashed through his mind, and even the pain of his wound felt like a relief in comparison. His teeth clenched together, and he tasted blood and let a breath out, relaxing his jaw. Onward and forward. James didn't like... Where was I? James didn't feel cold as he approached the building. Looking up, he studied the warehouse. Brush and vines coated the building so thickly it was hard to spot the doors ahead. Reaching up to his ADR control device, he tried to scan the building. Oh, right, he thought, recalling that he had purposely fried his ARD hours ago to keep anyone from tracking him. Now, give us a quick rundown. What's the ARD device?
So it's like a neural link type of augmented reality device. It stands for augmented reality device, I think. ARD. That's what I had it as.
Gotcha.
Pretty straightforward.
Sorry, girlfriend just got home, so saying hi to her really quickly. All right. So his vision swam with each step. He barely noticed the empty black hover vans or the bodies that lay on the ground in a rough line. He almost missed the gaping holes in the chest of the man dressed like special force goons. He nearly missed it all, but he wasn't that far gone. I missed one hell of a fight, James muttered as he stumbled forward into the building. As he squinted his eyes, he approached a blank wall where half a man's body, the bottom half, sat outside the building. Carefully reaching his hand forward, he was surprised to find that it pierced the wall without any effort, some sort of super advanced hologram. However it worked, James couldn't even begin to wonder. With only moments of hesitation, he pushed through the barrier and made his way inside. Ahead of him was a maze of hallways and bodies. Using the wall to keep himself from collapsing, he followed the trail of the dead. He coughed several times. The air was stale and tasted like burnt toast. Okay, so he coughed several times. The air was stale and tasted like burnt toast. It was odd to him that this fluorescent lit warehouse could have been the scene of such an epic battle. The pale white walls and outdated light fixtures stood at odds against the high-tech battle armor and the mass of dead bodies. Their powerful guns didn't fit next to the random assorted pictures of oceans and lonely beaches scattered on the walls. The sound of gunfire followed by yells and then odd whooshing noises echoed down the hall towards James. It would appear the battle wasn't over after all, he thought, as he turned the corner. Ahead were two large double doors. Both had been nearly blown off the hinges. Each door hung to the frame by a single point of obscured most er, by a single point and obscured most of his view as he approached. Pushing past the door, he didn't bother glancing inside, too weary from blood loss to care anymore. The majority of the room sat in darkness, the vastness of the room unseen. In the furthest corner, a circle of light illuminated several computers and a tomb-like object. In front of all that was a single man. His hands glowed a fierce yellow-orange, and just in front of him lay the body of one of the black-clawed men. Ha! Once I get going, I can't stop. The white lab cloak figure noticed James and his hands rose. James tried to call out to him, but instead was thrown into a fit of coughing. The heavy coughing and painful spasms dropped James to his knee, and just a beam of light streaked over his head. He could feel the heat of it, and he ducked even lower. Gaining a measure of control of his coughing, he yelled, "Phil sent me here!" He managed to stand and noted that the large man's hand stopped glowing. "Ah, I see," the stranger said, his voice low and booming. "I'm glad that another of his team can make it. Phil has already traveled through the gate. What is your name, friend?" "Mine is Dr. Vicar." James eyed Dr. Vicar as he approached. The man was a few inches taller than him, and a feat no one he had ever met accomplished. His lab coat was filled with bullet holes, and several red spots on the large man's shirt spoke of inflicted bullet wounds. Yet he walked as if he was in perfect condition. "My name is James," James said, letting Dr. Vicar give him an arm to keep him up. "How did you manage the light show?" "Ah, that." Dr. Vicar chuckled as he helped James get closer to the light. "Well, I am an ascendant being that managed to do a return trip to your planet in hopes that we could find out why your people were being forced to migrate over to Haven. More specifically, I'm a member of the Paladin Order." It hurt, but James laughed. This guy was a nut. "So, Dr. Looney Tunes." James tried to sound funny, but his voice was too ruined to make much of an attempt at it. "You really have a way to upload us? Or am I gonna die while you tell me stories about dragons and wizards?" "Lay down here," the crazed giant doctor said, placing James into the stone coffin that had wires and tubes running out of it. "I'll need to cut your clothes free. But be still, and I should be able to get you teleported to Haven before your body expires." Teleported? James was sure he had heard that right. Perhaps the doctor was loopy because of the bullet wounds as well. Either way, James could do nothing but watch the man cut free of what remained of his clothes and rubbed handfuls of cold jelly on him. Dr. Vicar shut the lid over him with a loud thump. It was transparent moments after shutting. James watched as the Dr. Vicar clicked on a keyboard close by. His face seemed worried, and he glanced towards James with a worried look. I'm going to redo that one. His face seemed worried, and he glanced at James with a worried look before turning towards his coffin. The doctor's hand began to glow, and he grabbed hold of the stone coffin. "There isn't enough power," the man yelled. "I will do my best to give you the power required. Safe travels." The stone box began to heat up, and a hint of panic tried to work its way into James's head, but was overruled by a growing darkness. As his vision blurred and darkened, he was sure that Dr. Vicar's entire body was glowing orange and beginning to fall apart. He was growing very tired and wasn't sure he could keep his eyes open any longer. A mixture of blood loss and exhaustion overtook him, and his world faded to black. So that's the prologue. Shit hits the fan quick, which I get it. We're in book 2, but shit hits the fan. So Haven is not what it seems to be, where Phil and James were under the impression that it was a digital world. Not the case, right?
Yeah. Which is something you learn as you read. It's hinted at, and I don't think it's truly flat out said until the end of book 1, book 2.
I mean,
but yeah, it's
Phil learns pretty like before
he
the
learns
end
pretty
of the
quick that
first book.
it's a
It's
very
a different
dangerous
world.
world. He doesn't
Yeah.
understand or realize until a little later that it's not what it seems, and that's when he encounters actually some of the not the first Eldritch Knights, but some of the races of the Eldritch Knights from before that have
Well,
their
and
own.
also in the first book, when he gets into the world, he also meets some people of the Paladin Order,
Yeah.
which are not great people.
Nope, they're definitely not, and they're much different than. They're a sect of paladins that. Well, I don't want to. I don't know what I should say. I don't want to spoil the.
I think since we're
the
doing
full
book 2,
story,
we can talk about book 1. I think it's fine.
okay. So in book 1, he encounters a sect of paladins that are from Earth. So they're not the type. They're not like, because you just met in the prologue one of the Paladin Order. He's not part of them.
Dr.
Otherwise,
Vicar
he
is
wouldn't be
actually
doing
one of
what
the
he's
good
doing.
ones.
Yeah, exactly. He's part of a sect that's trying to stop a bigger plot that's happening that kind of runs over the top of this book and a few of my other books as well. This kind of speaks to the larger plot of the universe that my books are written in.
No, Dr. Vicar is like, he's an interesting character because we meet him in book 1, don't we?
Yes.
He's the one that actually
he's who Phil interacts with.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I mean, it's definitely a cool thing, and I love seeing because I'm trying to think of the proper words for it, because I liked book 1. When you reached out about book 1, I was like, oh, I haven't read book 1, and then you sent me an audio code and you sent me a physical copy of it, and I really enjoyed it. It's the Eldritch Knight or Eldritch Knight. I always say Eldritch. I always think of it as a lich instead of that K sound at the end. Are one of my favorite classes to use in D&D. So, and I also really like paladins. So seeing your twist on the sect of paladins we meet in the first book, I was like, fuck yeah. These guys suck and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. They take the whole righteous indignation and stuff a little too far.
I thought we were going to have a few more people in here, but sadly we didn't. We still got Paul, I think. I don't know. Paul, you still here? I don't know. Oh well. We'll just we'll keep going. And I mean, the chapters aren't super long. I think book 2 is 88,000 words, is what you said.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So it'll be about 8.5,
However
9
long.
hour book.
Yeah.
All right. And Seth is his trainer, right? It's Phil's
Yeah, kind of
trainer.
his mentor character. Yeah.
She's a lot older, isn't she?
Yeah. She's older and her age is a bit extended because of her abilities.
I gotta remember the voice I had for her. I've been out of commission for so long. I haven't thought of the voices, because Phil's voice it's a little higher pitched. It's not like anything too crazy than my normal, because obviously my normal voice is going to be reserved for Tank, just because of his posture and everything. I don't want to give him that low booming voice, where everything just kind of boom and rasp, or treat him like, oh my god, when I think of Tank now, I think of Extreme Goofy movie, the skateboarding X Games Goofy movie. The sequel is like the direct to video one. There's a character in that one named Tank, and he's got that big voice. Not necessarily like Croc, Patrick, whoever. No, he's just. Oh god, I can't think of how his voice sounds now. Damn it, that's gonna bother me. It's a good movie. You should watch it. It's on Disney Plus. I know, I get off topic. There's fire in that one too. There's a huge fire. Yeah. Chapter 1.
I vaguely remember that.
I had it on VHS. And I love that movie. Which is weird, because I hated the first Goofy movie for the longest time when I was a kid. Love it now. Hated it when I was a kid. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Chapter 1. Phil. Several weeks after the burning of the World Tree. Oh yeah. Spoiler alert. We burnt down the World Tree. Yikes. You want to talk about that? Phil was not ready to face what lay behind the 20-foot rune-carved wooden door ahead of him. For once, it wasn't fear of harm that held him back, or the fear of any one person. The power he had amassed and could now call down at will against the enemies was vast. No, he wasn't afraid of them anymore, even if they did potentially hold even deeper pools of power. What he feared was the public speaking that would be required of him. Beside him stood his new lieutenant and friend Ned. He had abandoned his name along with a number of others. Atakariath? How do I fucking pronounce that?
Let me see.
Page 1. Technically.
Well, I don't have the two up here. Well, that's funny.
Did you send me your only copy of book 2?
No, so I put the hardbacks on the shelf, which means I don't know where I put the hardback. I must have taken it down. It's probably the Atahetas.
Yeah.
So I'd have to see.
A-H'-T-E-H-E-T-A-H.
Yeah.
Atahetas. Okay.
Yeah.
He had abandoned his name along with a number of other Atahetas, to the displeasure of many of the Ataherins. Right?
Yeah. So just a little background to that. The way it works in a tribe is the language. The way it ends is significant of their class in society.
Okay.
So one being the warrior caste and one being the more noble caste. Yeah.
And the Ahaherins are the noble.
Yep.
Okay.
Where the Ataheta are the warrior caste that are meant to keep them safe.
Gotcha. The tree folk were grateful to Phil for his intervention and ultimately saving their mother tree. But their race was dying, and without a new influx of souls, that death loomed closer than any of them wished to admit. Sharing a look with Ned, Phil took a deep breath and prepared to enter. Boom, boom, boom. Phil Phil did it as he was instructed by Seth, knocking thrice, then raised his hood. Raised his hood. Did your headset die? I can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted and oh.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
My headset reset itself, and I don't think I'm connected anymore.
I can hear you.
I think it's coming through the mic up here.
That
Like,
doesn't sound bad.
let me just take this off.
Okay.
You can hear me. There's no echo.
There's no echo.
Okay.
So
Go headset free.
all right, cool. Let's do it. I would, but I am required to wear mine because that way I can hear you and also hear myself.
Yeah.
Because words are
Yeah.
important.
It's just weird.
Yeah, it happens.
Let me switch.
All that World of Warcraft you've been playing.
Yeah, putting the headset for. Oh, that's probably why. Okay, I think I'm working in here now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I can hear you better too.
Cool.
Sorry
You
about
might be
that.
able to switch it back over to the laptop mic. I think the laptop mic actually sounded a little bit better, but keep the audio coming through your headphones.
Okay.
Which we're just going to read the
That's what I
next
wanted to
chapter,
test
and
before.
then I'm going to go talk to Maddie and everything. I was hoping for a little bit bigger of a turnout, but it's fine. It's fine. We're having fun here. So, which I mean, by the time we get done with this, it'll probably be about an hour. So,
Okay.
Paul, I got drywall all over my fucking fingers. How did we not clean up in here properly? Oh well.
Oops.
Then raised his hood. From what little Seth had been able to tell him, Phil expected that both Golder and Zarek would be in attendance. He thought back to the last time he had spoken to Golder, nearly a month ago. What do you mean you didn't find it? Golder said, standing far away, that he was cloaked in the smoke that rose from the burnt ground around him. I can see it around your neck, boy. I didn't find it. No, not. I didn't find it. Phil repeated his words, stronger and more confident this time. The Eldritch Knights will not give up their most holy artifact. And while I appreciate all the assistance Zarek had given me the past few weeks, I am not as naive as I once was when we met. Golder laughed. So be it. His form fading away and out of view. It was an eerie sound that continued, getting further and further away as time passed until Phil stood in the quiet of the evening. Phil's mind snapped back to the present as the doors creaked and swung open. Before him lay a sea of people, all sitting in a cathedral-like building with seating that ran up both sides of the curved wall. There was a staircase that led to a speaking platform that stood about halfway up the 50 pace high building, making it possible for people to address the entirety of the gathered people. Huh, it's a mouthful. Phil took each step carefully, his companion Ned walking beside him. At the edge of the viewing platform stood 6 figures, one of which Phil recognized immediately as Zarek, but Golder was not in sight. Stamping down the urge to burn him off the platform, Phil continued his ascent until he was standing in the middle of the 6. Each one represented a different order that was recognized by the Council and Eldritch Knight. By the Council, and the Eldritch Knights weren't among them. There were the armored paladins with their flames of indignation burning hot within them, and the priests who held both light and shadow within them, a duality that often brought them under an ire of some of the other orders. And of course, there were the wizards, which Zarek stood at the head of. The others were unknown to Phil, but he looked them over regardless. A short, stout man with black leathers, a woman in armor, a man wearing nothing but what looked like white pajamas, perhaps a monk of some kind or another. Phil prepared a speech he began to give the moment he reached the middle platform, as Seth had instructed him to do. It spoke of it spoke of how the Eldritch Knight were returning, their fire once more ignited, and they sought to have their place restored among the council. It spoke of great deeds done in the past, and how it was the fire of the Eldritch Knight that had repelled the last great war, not mentioning that it was that very war that had been caused by them in the first place. He went on, citing reasons and facts that as best as he could from what he had been told, all while feeding off of his inner fire to give him the strength and to cool his nerves. Phil feared no man Phil feared no man any longer, but having lost an arm in the treacher but having lost an arm, he was technically weaker than someone of equal strength who had access to all their nodes. Of course, no one here would know know he had lost an arm. He had replaced it with a prosthetic, but covered it with armor. Sure, he couldn't swing it very well, but he could move it all this around enough that it would appear to anyone not terribly keen on looking that he was a full fighting form. Ah, love it. Golder knew better. He'd seen him the night he had lost his arm, so Zarek would be clued in as well. The speech finished, and they gave the response that Seth said they would. Basically, retire to the waiting room, and we will deliberate over the matter. She expected that it would take an hour, if not longer, for them to issue the denial, which would give Phil time he needed to sneak into the library and find the books he needed. Phil allowed himself to be let out, and he took a seat outside, where they left him completely unguarded. Old, pompous fools that they were, Seth had guessed correctly that they'd be too secure in their own heads to expect Phil to do anything but wait for them. Looking at Ned, Phil smiled. Time to go shopping, Phil said, walking down the hall. And although the winding hallways towards the library, Phil said, walking down the hall and through the winding hallways towards the library. Dyslexia got me there. I can't read. Phil looked up at the towering man. He looked strange with his sap removed, among almost human, but his ears were different, more closely set against the head of his nose, more closely set against the head and his nose blunted. He didn't know how long Ned and his kind would last without the sap of the mother tree, but Phil had found some substitutions over the months leading up for the mission. Turns out they could find sap they needed elsewhere if they weren't afraid of hunting iguanas. Ixanas.
Oh, Ixanas.
Ixanas. Okay. Ixanas, mutated creatures that the tree folk turned into when they stopped taking the sap or aged to a certain point. It was one of the many issues Phil would have to deal with in the coming months when it came to Ned and the dozens or so warriors that he had joined the side of the Eldritch Keep. Seth wanted to turn them away at first, but when removing their sap, they showed her many runes on their flesh and that she had never seen before, so she allowed them to stay. If for studying them and nothing else, she said. Phil knew the truth was somewhere in between. So many of the tree folk warriors cast that's a weird text message. The hell is NRSC? Oh, National Republican. I'm good. Oh, Kellyanne Conway. I'm good. Thank you, though. Phil knew the truth was somewhere in between. So many of the tree folk warrior case had given their lives, turning feral and using the green flame, unlike Phil, or unlike any Phil had seen before. So they did not have a place at the Eldritch Keep. Even if their use of the flame was different than Seth's and Phil's. Sound echoed ahead as they walked the corridors, and they slipped into a door to avoid detection. It turned out that the small broom closet it turned out to be a small broom closet, and after the footsteps passed, they continued on their way. And that's the end of chapter 1. So shit's kind of hitting the fan for Phil.
And for the Eldritch Order,
Yeah.
you start off. It's kind of to lead up to that. He kind of made a bargain that he was supposed to keep to, and he decided not to because it required him to betray the Eldritch Order.
Which, I mean, he
Now he
wasn't
kind of
originally
finds
going
himself at the
to.
head of it.
Yeah, he was originally not going to join the Eldritch Order. He was.
Yeah, he was there to kind of act as a puppet for a more powerful person who couldn't do a certain thing that needed to be done without spoiling it. Basically, you you have people that are potentials, and once you've accepted a certain order, you're stuck in that. You can't change, and
Right.
he has items that he needs, but he can't get because he's not of that order.
Right. So they wanted him to steal pretty much the holy relic of the Eldritch Order, which, I mean, if Seth wasn't alive, he could have easily done, right?
Well, even with her being so, you have to be an Eldritch Knight to be able to take the artifact that he took,
Mm-hmm.
which was hidden away in their keep from years before. So he had to find one of the few remaining Eldritch Knights to make him an Eldritch Knight, because it's kind of a situation of chicken and the egg. You have to have an Eldritch Knight or to have any of these paladins, you have to first have another one that initiates you into the magic. Kind of takes your potential and either lights it on fire in the case of paladins and Eldritch Knights, or does other arcane methods depending on the different orders.
Gotcha. I
Yeah.
mean, that makes sense. It's it's a give and take type situation, which Goldrick was expecting Phil to betray, and he's like, "Oh no, you're just going to do this and deceive, and you'll be fine." He was expecting Phil to die.
Yeah. I
Fucking
mean,
dork.
there's kind of a catch though, because he they needed somebody that could take it, and there's no telling if that person is going to be worthy, because the artifact itself has a kind of conscience, and if you're not worthy of the ideals of that order, then it's going to just kill you. Uh, it's going to purge you. He was able to take it, which made him the de facto leader of the Eldritch Knights. And with that responsibility, he kind of had to decide: is he going to give it up, or is he going to stick to, with Seth and the friends that he's made and take a different path?
Yeah.
Even though there's going to be huge consequences because he decided to go against that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough decision. So I'm excited. I like Phil as a character. I like James as a character. Steph is cool. She doesn't really rub me the wrong way yet. Don't change that on me.
Well, book 3 things are going to be happening, but I won't get into that because that'll definitely be spoilers.
Yeah.
But if you like anything that you've heard, go check out book 1. and then book 2.
Book 2, which I will be doing updates on and everything. And when we get shut up, Paul. Shut the fuck up. Paul tried to rub me the wrong way in the middle of the movie theater the other day with the popcorn bucket.
Yeah. Did you
So
guys get the popcorn bucket that
yeah, the
came with
Wolverine
the
one.
movie?
Yeah, I'll go grab it.
Yeah.
I got a Wolverine cup as well. Give me a second. I like having these shelves in here now because I can actually set stuff out. So the Wolverine popcorn bucket, it says designed by Deadpool, and at the bottom it even says can also be used for popcorn because they knew what they were doing.
It's for popcorn.
They knew what they were doing. The tongue is textured. The tongue is
Oh
textured.
no.
They knew what
That's
they were
awesome.
doing. And then I also got a Wolverine cup. They were out of Deadpool cups, but I got a Wolverine cup, and I'm actually really happy about this. So no, the movie was fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm seeing it this weekend. So well, not this weekend, but next weekend.
I am going to a wedding next weekend because my best friend and co-host Joel Harvey is getting married.
Yay! Congrats.
So I just got my shirt in for my tux today. So I tried it on. It actually fits, thankfully. But yeah, so I'm off tomorrow. So I'm gonna be doing some work in here because I got my laptop back after hardware decided to crash, and it turns out it was that update.
Yep.
So
Yeah. That dang update.
fucking update. So luckily I didn't lose any files or anything, thankfully. So yeah, but I'm gonna get going on that, and I'm hoping to have it out hoping to have it done by middle of August.
Nice. Yeah,
So
that'd be
I'm
really
gonna
good.
I have split days off this week, so I'll be working on it Sunday and Wednesday. And then next week I have Sunday, Monday off, but Sunday I will be out of town completely because I will be covering the wedding and all that fun stuff. And then Thursday's my birthday that week.
Yay! Happy birthday.
Fuck that. Fuck that. I don't know when our
1
next
year older.
fuck that. I don't know when our next episode is going to be. I think it's with Selkie Myth, who writes the Oathbound Healer series through the Dragon Eye Moon. I think is what it's. The first book is Oathbound Healer. It's a good series. Tim, you been reading anything recently? Let's do what you've been reading.
Well, let me pull it up. So most recently, I started doing a re-listen to Way of Kings because my wife finished the Way of Kings for the first time, which got me kind of jealous.
That's Stormlight Archives, right?
Yeah,
Brandon
Stormlight
Sanderson?
Archives, Way of Kings, the first one. Yeah, Brandon Sanderson.
I have that book, and I love that book. Not my favorite Sanderson series.
Yeah, I think the only thing he's written, well, I don't know. I'm gonna say the only thing I like maybe is as much or more would be Warbreaker.
Mistborn for me.
Yeah, I like Mistborn, but I like the epic scale of Way of Kings.
Yeah, Way of Kings. I love the world, obviously, but also the Fugal Wizard's Guide to Surviving Medieval England. I got that on.
Oh yeah, I just read that too.
That is such. I think that is the closest thing we will get to a Sanderson lit RPG.
Yep. No, I agree. Where'd it go? Oh, here's.
Do you have the special edition cover? I hate you. Mine is
Yeah, so I did the Kickstarter.
Kickstarter. I have only backed 2 Kickstarters now. 3. No, 2, because Matt Denneman's for Dungeon Crawler Carl. I need to read The Sunlit Man. I need to read it.
It took a second for me to get into it, but once I got into it, oof, so good. And once I realized who certain characters were going by different names, I was like,
So do I need to read other
oh,
stuff of his before getting into that, or
as long as you've read the first, how much of the Way of Kings have you read? Or the Stormlight Archives, rather. Are you up to date on it?
first 2?
Okay, then that's probably enough.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it had been a while for me too, so that's why it took me so long, I think, to realize who the character was.
See, that's one thing I do like about like when authors bring in their characters just under different names. Like Andrew Rowe with his Arcane Ascension series. He brings in Kira Solarian, who is he goes by a different name in the his other series, which is the War of Broken Mirrors. Great series. But
Yeah, I
that
love those.
series,
I love everything he's written that I've read so far. So
Andrew Rowe,
yeah, I'm pretty sure I have
I wanted to
his
get
books
Arcane
in paper.
Ascension's Kickstarter. Yep. I love Arcane Ascension. I have a poster of it that Joel got me at Dragon Con 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. He got me a poster of Arcane Ascension from the Podium publishing table, which I'm gonna try to go and see if they have anything this year when we go to Dragon Con, because we're going to Dragon Con together.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
It is. I got some stuff planned.
So most recently that I've been reading of lit RPG wise, I just finished
Not just reading.
was
Just reading. You don't have to
it's
do
called
anything else.
Silvers, but Quest Academy.
The first book
I
by
thought
Mr. Brian
was
J. Norton.
yeah. So I actually planned to do his second book next, but then I wanted
Scavengers is
to
good.
do a reread of Way of Kings, and now I'm about halfway through it, and I'm like, I kind of remember now all the stuff that's happening, so I kind of want to stop and jump into the second book of Quest
Quest
Academy.
Academy. Quest Academy's fucking fantastic.
Yeah,
I
it's
fucking
really
love.
good.
Legion has been nothing but bangers for books. All their books are fucking top notch, in my opinion. I just got Theft of Decks in the mail from Legion. They sent me a copy as a thank you for just doing the podcast and everything. Even though we haven't had Lars on the show yet. Lars, you Swedish lovable bastard. I think he's Swedish. Fuck, I hope I called him the right thing. That probably won't be good. I'm pretty sure he is Swedish because they were making Swedish fish jokes at him. So I don't know. I think Jess calls him Belgium or Danish. One of the two. I don't know. They're mean to Lars, but I love Lars. He's a very good man. I got to meet him at Dragon Con last year, and the whole Legion family is just they're a bunch of wonderful people. I am ready for Desecrate, which comes out a month from today. That's book 2 in Calamity or Knights of Eternity by Rachel Niekirk. I can't fucking wait. Oh my god, it's a month. It's 1 month out, and I can't fucking wait. And I'm like, oh, do I save that for the flight down to Dragon Con? Or do I just say fuck it and power through that book? Because a lot of books come out that week. Because that comes out, I'm pretty sure All the Skills, book 4 comes out that week.
I still need to read book 3.
Oh my god, book 3 was phenomenal.
I read book 1 and 2, and I loved them.
I slept on the series.
When there's breaks between series, it kind of takes.
I slept on the series, and I feel bad for doing so because I've warmed up to Luke Daniels a lot more than what I used to. I love Luke Daniels. I always had to be in a very specific mood for his narration. Because anytime I hear his voice, I just think of a gunslinger. He's got a really good gunslinger voice, but that's all I can picture. So Joel's like, just read the book. I promise you will love it. Read the book. You're on a deck building kick at the moment. Read the book. I didn't want to fucking stop. I powered through each book in a day. Took me 3
Yeah.
days.
I can see that. So I did book 1 and 2 right after each other, and book 3 wasn't out yet, and so I had to move on to something else. But I was really sucked into the world. Does
Oh,
a really good job.
book three's even more wild than the others.
Yeah.
Let's see. What have I been reading? Because I just powered through a lot. I'm on a deck building kick. So Battle Deck Academy by Harmon Cooper. His newest book is phenomenal. I was on a dragon story kick, so I read The Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, the first 2 books in the Imperium series. Phenomenal. I really liked them.
That's one my wife and I have been considering.
Um,
The only thing that stops me is the perspective. It's like present tense and
so it's first
I don't know if
person.
there's first or third.
It it's first and third person. I'm pretty sure, but it's from the perspective of
Okay.
Violet, and it's actually not. It's like records. It's like diary experts and everything.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
it explains it, but it's like found libraries and translated. It's really good. The way they do it is fantastic, but it gets spicy. Oh boy, does it get spicy. I was like, isn't this supposed to be a young adult novel? And I was like, oh, it's like
Like
on
nope.
this. It's on the like the trope of a court of thorns and roses. I was like, oh, okay, that
Mhm.
makes sense. That makes sense. So it's smutty romance, and I like it. It was good. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people complained about the narrator. I didn't have an issue with her. I thought she was great. So shout out to her. I read I Power Up with Every Monster Girl I Defeat. It's the newest audiobook from HP Hollow and ED Sky for Monster Girl Tamer. Takes place in the Monster Punk Horizon universe. Love it. Um, I think that's it. I think that's it from my last episode that I've really read. So yeah, that's about it. So yeah,
Nice.
so
Good
that's
stuff.
it. And then obviously Eldritch Knight. So yeah, that's I think kind of wraps it up for right now. Stay tuned. Follow. Hey Tim, where can people find you? It's not like we were looking at
Um,
your Twitter earlier or anything.
right. You can find me on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it. I don't post there very often, but if you follow me on Facebook and I have a Facebook group, you can join. Again, I don't post just fairly often, but if there's a release or any news or updates, I make sure to put it there.
We go hard on the post.
Definitely follow me on Amazon. That's probably the best way. They're really good at letting you know when I put out new books. So
And we got some fun books coming out soon.
yeah, yeah, a
Can't
lot of
wait.
stuff on the horizon.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. So Tim, thank you so much for joining, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to narrate this book because I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it. It's gonna be good, and I'm hoping to have it out before DragonCon. Because how cool would it be for me to go to DragonCon and be like, I got an audiobook out, guys. I did
Yeah,
it.
that would be awesome.
If I wasn't fucking injured, I'd have been done
Where
by
can
now.
you give hugs at? Dragon Con. I'll be there.
Yeah, Paul. I get first hug, bitch. No, so we went to the movies the other day, and it was him and Brandon and I. Brandon gave me a hug first. I was like, oh, thanks, Brandon. Even though I paid for Paul's ticket, I didn't get a hug until after the movie. What kind of shit is that? But they were also like, we were walking into the movie as the trailers were starting.
Got to get in there.
So I got to see my Nicole Kidman, doing her AMC making movies better speech.
Hmm.
Because that's how you know you're at a movie theater.
Yeah, I haven't been to the theaters in a while, so this will be nice.
It was definitely worth it. I haven't been that excited to be in a movie theater since Guardians 3. And I went and saw The Boy and the Heron with Maddie. And that was a good movie, but it just didn't hold that like the hype level. Oh, shut up, Paul. You were just wanting to get in that movie theater bucket. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. So, Tim, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Guys, go read Timothy's books. Like, get on Audible or something and check out Arcane Knight. Check out Path of the Titans. Check out Lastborn of Daikarth. Oh, I forgot. We didn't mention Nexus Guardian. I knew there was one I was forgetting. Nexus Guardian.
It's also a finished series. The audio should be coming out eventually for that. I don't know.
I haven't seen the
third
episode yet.
I know it's been recorded, so it's in the process. So it's kind of on the publisher to get it out whenever it's ready.
Todd,
but I haven't received an email for it.
Manessis
And I don't
does
see
that
it,
one, right?
So. Yep, Todd Manessis. Yep.
I like Todd. He's a good narrator.
Yeah, he's narrated a good bit of my stuff, and he's actually a good friend of mine. So
I might have to pick his brain.
Happy to have him do it. Yeah, should. He's a nice guy.
Send him my way so I can pick his brain. All right. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, have a wonderful night. Stay tuned for more episodes to come of actual Stats on Stats. This was just a fun little episode we did. So have a good night, guys.
Bye.
And